Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and today we are covering week 18 of my film journey. The last 18 weeks, I've been physically journaling and writing down all of the things that I've been watching and picking up, and it's been a really fun way to tackle the medium and a very cathartic experience. But today, I want to cover a few things. One is I have a Labelmaker now, and which it's kind of silly, but at the same time, I'm starting to think about new ways of organization. In fact, you can kind of see a sneak peek over here of what's going on up there, but I'm going to show you in a video later of what I'm doing with this bad boy. So besides that, I have a few hauls to show you, some from Second Sight and the others from Radiance Films, which I'm really excited to talk about. 3 of them I've seen, 2 of them I have not. And there's also some things I'm going to be covering for November outside of the folk horror that I've been watching, and then we're going to get to the All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2 box set. I'm on the 4th disc now, so we're going to talk about the first 3 discs and, yeah, all the things that I've been watching with it. So before we jump into all this, I want to know down in the comment section, what have you been watching for November? I'm sure a lot of people are on Noirvember, watching a lot of noirs. Are you watching some holiday films as Thanksgiving is coming around here in the States, or, you know, with the weather change? I'm sure some people are already into the holiday spirit. I would love to know what you're watching and what you're picking up. So let me know down in the comment section. All right, so let's jump into the titles that I picked up, some that I actually pre-ordered some time ago when this was announced live, but I have 2 things from Second Sight that I'm really excited to show you that I actually have seen both. One in theaters earlier this year, and another one is a classic from the 90s. And the first one we'll talk about is the Blair Witch Project. I don't know why I stopped there, but the Blair Witch Project, this is going to probably be the penultimate edition of this film. I love this movie. This is one of my favorite films, favorite found footage films of all time. So I am really ecstatic to kind of just jump into this, but this thing is a behemoth of a set. Second Sight is par none with a lot of the things that they do. So there's a couple of things here. Of course, there are postcards, which I'll go ahead and tear just on video. So if this is done in one take, this is done in one take. But there are some really cool artwork. Some of the sticks that they find, the 3 travelers in the woods with their camcorder. And then we have the original poster art right there. So the Blair Witch Project. I love the story of this video, or this movie, and then also just the history behind it so much. But there is an all-weather backcountry notebook that comes with it right here. It's Heather's notebook, but it's just kind of showing all of the dates and things that they're seeing on the way out in the wilderness that they're running across, which is going to be a scary ride. And I'm sure it's going to be really fun to kind of just jump into this notebook and see the madness kind of unfold as the story progresses. But there's not much of a story. It's pretty much just different days in the woods as they're hearing noises and sticks cracking. But there is the 2 Blu-ray discs. So there are a Blu-ray disc and a special features disc. This is not on 4K. I don't have the paper in front of me to explain exactly what the upgrade is, but there are a couple of things that they've done in terms of the footage themselves, and they've upgraded it to a really high standard. So like I said, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't read you exactly what it is. And then there's this hardcover book, which has that awesome artwork that we showed earlier. Hardcover book right here, which looks like is just a standard kind of essay book, but it has a crap ton of content here, cast and crew and various different acknowledgments. It looks like it's over 200 pages, which is kind of wild. And yeah, I'm just really excited to kind of dive into this box set and kind of read more about things like this. That there's the original production archive, just to jump into the story of this film. The Blair Witch Project, this is one of my favorite found footage films, one that really does scare me to this day. I think the less you see, the better. Fear is really in the mind, and this is a movie that definitely transcends that particular thought process. And if you're watching this movie, I'm so stoked to check this out again. And as I'm watching a lot of folk horror, of course, I'm probably going to be putting this in very, very shortly. Another film that I watched is one that came out earlier this year that I fell in love with, and a lot of people did. In fact, a lot of people told me to go watch it in the theaters, and I'm talking about Late Night with the Devil. And this is the Second Sight version. I know there is an Umbrella version, I believe, but there are different editions of it. I haven't even opened it, so let's open it right now. So we have, I think, just a standard book with it, and also postcards. So we have the postcards here, So it's this. This is about a late night game show host right there, who is, you know, may or may not be inviting a woman on here, and who happens to be possessed, and some things start going awry. But it's a super fun kind of throwback film where it definitely feels like, and there's one of the fake mediums who is taunted quite a bit. But these are some really cool cards just to kind of showcase the stylized version of this movie, because it's definitely set in a certain specific time. It feels like a 70s late night talk show host, right? Like a Johnny Carson of sorts. But this comes out on 4K and on Blu-ray. Those are the discs themselves. The 4K is right here, and then the Blu-ray. So that's going to be exciting to check out. And there's a little pictogram there. And then there is Late Night with the Devil. There is the booklet itself. Just like Blair Witch Project, I'm sure this is cast and crew and a bunch of essays that come with it from various people. And it looks like it's around 150 pages. But yeah, this looks delightful. This looks like a lot of fun. And there's some storyboards in here as well. This movie is really, really well done, and one of the best horror films of the year, and I definitely recommend people check it out. So whatever version you're going to get picked up, this is a movie that I think a lot of people need to see, even if they want to watch it on streaming. This is one of the best movies of the year. There's quite a bit of charm to it, and I love the aesthetics of going back to 1977 and seeing this fake talk show host kind of unravel in front of our eyes. Now, the other three films that I picked up are from Radiance, and in fact, I actually ordered this from Orbit DVD. Normally, I either order direct from Radiance overseas, or I order it from Orbit DVD. I think Diabolique DVD also has these things, but I was so stoked when this October announcement got put out, and some spooky films are right here. Two of them I haven't seen, so I'll just mention those ones really quick. The first one is a Japanese film from 1988, Dagra Magra, I think is how you say it. It's directed by Toshio Matsumoto. And it looks like quite a eerie tale of some deities that look quite horrific. And I've only seen the trailer for this movie, but based on the trailer alone, it freaked me out enough to be like, you know what, I want to watch this movie. So pick that up. There's also another film. This is actually, I think, partly Mario Bava in a way. I think he either produced it or did something with it. But it is I, Vampiri right here. This is Spy Number 79. It's directed by Riccardo Frida, and so this looks like a really fun 50s vampire movie. So it's 1957, it's all in Italian and some English, and this looks like a lot of fun. So, of course, I've been in that mood lately. If you have been following along with my film journey, you know I've been watching some Mexican macabre and Danza macabre stuff, so this is definitely right up my alley right now. Now, the other thing that I got, and one that is on par with one of the best releases of the year that I'm so stoked to watch about, it is a 1922 classic. It is Haxan, or Witchcraft, right? Haxan, Witchcraft Through the Ages. But this is such a gorgeous piece of artwork. Holy crap. Benjamin Christensen is the director of this film, and what a film it is. It is like a documentary of sorts, but also fictitious in the way that it's presented. It also feels very much like a textbook from a different time period where we haven't necessarily got all of the information. So some of the stuff is a little outdated, but at the same time, it's just super cool. Just seeing all this different occult stuff kind of passed down throughout the ages. So here's the booklet right here. I just dropped the Obi strip because I actually took this out already, but there is this. This is just a gorgeous piece of art. So like if anyone is familiar with this film, visually, this is a stunning film. So and it's kind of set as a silent picture, but with voiceover. So there's, like I said, it's kind of like a documentary of sorts. But this is just a really cool booklet right here. And here is the Blu-ray right here. This is the original poster art, but I actually have the new art as well on the other side. So this is, well, new art, new-ish art. But I love the original artwork, but there's not really too much new things here because this came out from Criterion not too long ago, but there are a couple of different extra features that are, specific to this one. One's an audio commentary by Guy Adams and A.K. Benedict. And then there's another one for Satan, the Convert's Guide to Haxan, a visual guide from Vito A. Rowlands, author of the BFI Film Classics edition of Haxan. And then there's also a film appreciation by Guillermo del Toro, which is one of the best filmmakers to this day, especially horror filmmaker. And having that alone is just worth it for me. But also just having this beautiful edition of this movie, plus all of the extra things that are in here from various years. One's actually even an introduction from the director from 1941, so quite some time ago. But I also didn't mention there are art cards here, which the art cards are actually quite shockingly stunning. Right here, there's one. There's another. Right, you can see she's praying, but you can see the devil in the corner right there, who is actually played by Benjamin Christensen. Then there's this, right, this woman who is being, lauded over with a demon over there. Then we also have a monk and a woman who is possibly trying to trick him. Then we have the devil right there, and that's actually the cover of the Criterion edition is this one, and it's quite beautiful as well. And then there is Benjamin Christensen scaring a monk, which is really cool. But I love this movie. It's quite historical for many purposes. It's wild to me that this is a film that I feel like should have been made in a different time period, but it's just wild to me that it was made in the 20s. But this is one of my most anticipated film releases of the year, even though it's not really adding too much necessarily from the other Criterion edition. So again, if you just want to watch the film, watch it out on like Criterion channel or watch it in some instance. I'm sure it's actually probably readily available. It might even be available through YouTube. But if you are curious about picking this movie up and you're a big fan of it, I definitely recommend the Radiance edition of this, because this is a beaut, and I cannot wait to pop it in myself. All right, so before we jump into this bad boy, All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2, which is going to be the primary thing we're going to be talking about today, there are a few things that I actually watched during November. In fact, I've been catching up a little bit, so I've been really bad about this, but there are a few things that I have watched since spooky season has kind of ended, even though I've continued spooky season. So let's jump into that a little bit. One is I rewatched Pan's Labyrinth, which was actually the first film that I watched in November. I think this is a good transitory film between the seasons of October to November. Honestly, it's a sad fairy tale. It's a dark fantasy film from Del Toro, who we just mentioned with the Haxan release. But this is my favorite film from him. In fact, one of my favorite films of all time. This is a movie that I think will break your heart, but at the same time, I love the historical fiction aspect of it too, because there, was a story being told in the background of the main story, which is this little girl, Ophelia, who is going into this magical kingdom, trying to get into this magical kingdom, protect her mother and her unborn baby brother. And it goes wild, and there's some creatures, and the design is just beautiful. Doug Jones is great, which he's actually right there. You can tell I'm a super fan of this movie, and I wanted to rewatch it, just because I was in that mood. So 5 out of 5, fantastic movie. Go watch Pan's Labyrinth. Go cry your eyes out. It's worth every penny. Now, on the opposite side of that, I actually just want to briefly cover a TV show that I actually have been watching and finally finished, and I'm a little sad that it's finished because it is such a innocent but also charming show. It's a BBC show, and it is Ghosts. And I watched all 5 seasons of this. Previously, I think I picked this up a couple months ago, and I had watched a season or two and was enjoying quite a bit of it. And I just fell in love with the characters in this show, with all the different cast and crew of all these different spirits who have all these different abnormalities. They died in certain ways, but they're also so cheeky and fun. And then the homeowners are just these lower middle class people who are just trying to spruce the place up, but at the same time live there harmoniously. At the very beginning of the show, we have one of our main characters who gets in an almost near-death accident and can see the ghosts, and that's kind of the premise of the show. Is she can see the ghosts, interact with them, kind of falls in love with them, and wants to be around them as much as possible, and also away from them as much as possible. It is just a delightful show. This is a show that I recommend for everybody of all ages. This is one that I think everyone should watch. Even if you have kids, I think this is a good show to show them, which is just, terrific. But it's kind of parallels into a little bit of a spooky because it's in the name, but it's really a comedy and a delightful one at that. So I definitely recommend people check out this show, the BBC version right here. This is the UK version, not the American one. I haven't seen that, but this is the one that I've been, really loving. All right, so moving away from Ghosts is a vinyl collection that I have that is of one of my favorite albums of all time. This is the 15th anniversary of this, and it came with a Blu-ray, which is why I'm talking about it today. But this is a really personal album for me. I actually even have it on my left calf, the album artwork, which I'll show you. This is the alternate artwork, but this is the box set for Crack the Sky, the 15th anniversary edition. This is just a gorgeous piece of art. I love the pink on kind of that gold and kind of gray and yellow look to it. It has just some gorgeous artwork. So I'm going to show you the Blu-ray here in a second, but let's jump into what's inside this vinyl collection. So this came with a fridge magnet, which has kind of the original artwork here with some of their other pieces that they commissioned for this. This is actually, these Czars are actually the ones that are on my leg, on top of the bear that's in the original album, which I'll show you in just a second. But this is a cool fridge magnet that you can pop out the little things, but I'm not going to because of how much I love that whole image together. It's very trippy. Here is actually the album cover of the original album, which is my favorite, which has the bear right here, the golden bear, and then all these different colors with some smoke and some clouds in the back with the Tsar. But then there's the back right here of the album artwork. There's some really terrific artwork in here. It's about this guy who's astral projects, who can't move. And there's also a Tsar that gets involved in here, and they do a lot of things. And I'll showcase that more so when we're talking about the Blu-ray. But here is the album artwork. That is quite impressive. There's actually an Oni right there, if you can see it. And then last but not least is the Tsar himself, one of the bad men in the album's story. It's a very personal album for Mastodon as well, especially for Bron Daler, who is the drummer, who actually Crack the Sky is actually a reference to his sister who committed suicide. Her name is Sky, was Sky. And so this is a very personal and cathartic album for them. And Mastodon in general, it was a grand kind of shift from where they were doing sludge metal before into this progressive metal side. And it really just opened themselves up to so much more possibilities. But there's also a giant poster in here, which I'll show you the bottom here. There's the pieces right there. And then there's the top with the Tsar and the sun and the moon right there. It is a huge album poster. So let me just show you that real quick. Whoa, there it is, all in its glory. If you can hear me. We're done with that one. And then there are the albums themselves, which actually there is a instrumental version of this and then the normal version. So let me show you both of those. There is the normal edition with that new commissioned artwork, which is in gold and has like a skull and some birds, which looks terrific. And then there is right there the instrumental album. But these are actually smoky gray, kind of charcoal. You can see kind of through that. It's literally trying to be, thinking more of the air elements that they have in this. Crack the Sky itself is a very ethereal type of album. But these are really cool. I haven't listened to the instrumental. I've listened to the album a million times. I mean, that's why it's tattooed on my leg. It's just a terrific piece of art that I just cannot stop listening to. And one that, kind of awakens a lot of things within me and reminds me of times that were really difficult in my life. And the other thing that it came with is a Blu-ray. And this Blu-ray actually is right here. But I actually took it out and put it in an actual disc right here, which is nice that I have this Blu-ray disc here. But there are a couple of things in here. And in fact, this is actually something I really enjoy. They actually have a plastic piece in here. That's how they should do it. People need to put plastic pieces in here to protect the discs. That's such a great idea. I love that. But I wanted it to be in an actual disc case, right? But this is, this edition on the Blu-ray has three things with it. It has Crack the Sky, the 10th anniversary animations, which is produced by Hey Beautiful Jerk, which is 51 minutes, which came out a few years ago. I think 2019 was when the 10th year anniversary came out for this, and so they actually produced that for this, and a lot of the imagery that I've shown you is in that that piece, and so it's really cool to kind of see it in a visual feast of a film. The other thing is there's a Crack the Sky the movie, which is directed by Roboshobo. That's probably the creator of it, which is a 51 minutes edition of, obviously, is going through the album, and actually produced this during their tour when they did the Crack the Sky tour. It's almost like a black and white story of what's going on within the story, and it's a gorgeous piece. And honestly, you can watch it on like as a silent picture as well, I'm sure. But of course, with the songs themselves, It's very Pink Floyd meets Wizard of Oz type of story, right? But more like Metropolis because it's black and white and it's got this really cool tint to it. But I digress. I want people to watch that. And then there's the other thing on here is the making of Crack the Sky, which was made back when they made this in 2009. And I think 2010 is probably when they produced that out because it's after the album during the making of. But man, oh man, this is one of the greatest albums of all time in my book. I love it so much, and I had to share it with you, and I just had a good time kind of going down memory lane with Mastodon and just jumping back into one of the best albums of all time. But yeah, I had to pick this one up. This is a must-have in my collection. Moving from there, we're going to jump into some folk horror, which is the main thing about this entire episode. Well, I actually have been jumping into All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2, but I wanted to watch the Woodland Darks and Days Bewitched documentary that kind of started it all. So I rewatched this documentary and I had an absolute blast with it. It's about 3.5 hours. I think I said something around 4, but regardless, it is so fun to jump in and honestly just like write down all of the titles that they introduce and then talk about in this. And Kayla Janice does a fantastic job of kind of discussing the different areas of the world and all the different histories and preservations of a lot of the things that are going on with folk horror and the reason it's kind of becoming so huge to this day. But I have this, I rewatched the documentary, and that made me want to jump back into this world, and now I'm into a new world with All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2, which I talked about a couple weeks ago when I picked this up. And oh my god, I love this set so far. I've only seen the first 3 discs on here. There's 13 discs in total. I'm in the middle of the 4th disc, which I'll jump into next week when I cover that. And of course, I'm probably going to cover the next probably 3 or 4 discs. I don't know how I'm going to be dividing this up, but let's talk about what I've been doing with these films. So let's jump into the titles themselves. So last time I kind of covered the contents of this thing, but the first disc that comes with it is disc 1, which is To Fire You Come at Last, and also Psychomania, which is some wild artwork right there. Let's talk about To Fire You Come at Last. So this came out not so long ago, and it was actually commissioned for this particular set, which is really, really cool to kind of have that piece as a part of this particular collection. And in fact, Kayla Janice, I think, tapped the director, who is, I'm trying to get their person's name right, Sean Hogan, which is half of this disc right here is Sean Hogan. And there's some short films from Sean Hogan that I'll also talk about here as well. But this is actually a short film. It's around 45 minutes or so, and is of a group of people on a corpse road during the dead of night, delivering a corpse in a coffin and through the moors, and they're hearing things in the background, but there's some shady characters that they are holding the coffin with, and there's some really kind of back and forth between the people who are delivering this body to this location, but it gets spookier and spookier. There's maybe a hound in the background, some ghosts perhaps, but it is a chilling piece of work, and I really, really love it for various reasons. One, it's black and white and is beautifully shot. And what's really wonderful about the shots are it has a lot of claustrophobic close-up shots, even though they're in the middle of this giant moor, this open field. But the darkness and the black and white cinematography really lend to the story itself, and the way it's shot is terrific. And I love kind of the alternating allegiances that each of the characters have, and they definitely don't trust each other in various ways, and it is kind of a nail-biter the entire time. And the way it ends is spectacular, very open-ended, and I love that kind of stuff. But this is a terrific film to introduce into the box set, and one that I think more people should talk about. It's really, really terrific. Now, Sean Hogan not only did a few other things for this particular thing, I actually listened to the audio commentary, which is actually why I'm probably a little behind on watching a lot of these, is because I've actually decided to watch all of the commentaries and listen to all the commentaries that they have for these discs. And that audio commentary has Sean Hogan, who's the director, co-producers Paul Goodwin and Nicholas Harwood, and it's quite a delightful kind of journey as they're kind of explaining the whole process and how quick it came to be, and how low budget they had, and the decision to make it black and white. These different kind of things were really fascinating to hear from the director and the producers themselves, and see them and their creative process. And it was really fun to watch that commentary. There's also a trailer on here. There's also On the Lich Way, which is a Corpse Road chronicler. Dr. Stuart Dunn discusses the pathways of the dead. So he talks about the Corpse Roads in England. In fact, there's a Corpse Roads map that come with the really cool special edition, which is actually on my door. But it's a really cool special feature, kind of just jumping into the history of what Corpse Roads are. So definitely check that out. I enjoyed that and didn't really know much about Corpse Roads, honestly. Also in this set is We Always Find Ourselves in the Sea, which is another short film from Sean Hogan. And this is actually like a Christmas ghost story. So very much like the old BBC versions of those stories, and is very short, about an old man who is definitely losing his marbles. He's out on near the coastline and lives nearby the sea. He gets a visitation from his daughter, his estranged daughter, and some weird things start awry. And I definitely recommend people check this short film out. It's also just masterfully shot and is like 9 minutes long. It's not that long at all. But there's also a commentary, again by the same people from the commentary from before with To Fire You Come at Last, which is with Sean Hogan, the director, and the co-producers Paul Goodwin and Nicholas Harwood. And I loved hearing that about their kind of journey and watching a lot of those old BBC ghost stories and getting that kind of, I would say, inspiration to do something like that and have this little ghost story for this particular set, which is really cool. And then there's also EPK for We Always Find Ourselves in the Sea, which is a little extra as well on this particular journey, which is really fun. So yeah, disc one, that's just the first half. The second half is another crazy film, Psychomania. This wild story that I honestly do not know how to explain. It's about a biker gang who is also very cultish, and maybe one of the leaders happens to be immortal, and they keep killing themselves and causing ruckus throughout the entire countryside. And it kind of jumps all over the place. It definitely feels almost a little bit like a Hammer film in ways, or at least the late Hammer films that were in the 70s, and definitely feels like that. But this movie is wild in the best way possible. And if you are into some insane ideas, especially of a biker gang who is the devil worshipping cult of sorts, kind of going around and killing themselves, but also at the same time destroying everything in their path, and realizing maybe there's more to their life than just all of the things they're doing. It's quite a treat, and it's quite fun. But this also has an introduction by film historian Chris Alexander, which is nice to kind of explain the history of why this story came about. It also has audio commentary from Maria J. Perez Cuervo, and founding editor of Hellborn magazine. And that was a really fun kind of treat to watch that commentary as well, and kind of explain her process. But there was like a really long history kind of this story, and she describes that in really great detail as well. And then there's Stone Warnings, Dr. Diane A. Rogers on stone circles and standing stones in film and television, which, by the way, I didn't mention. If you can see right here, there's standing stones, and then there's the bikers. That's kind of the premise of why it's a little folky, but also the occult aspect of it happens to be that too, with a lot of the reincarnation stuff going on. But these symbols right here, very much like Stonehenge, if you will, think about that visually. That's kind of where a lot of this kind of druid magic comes from, and so they explain that in this. Then there's also Return of the Living Dead, interviews with actor Nicky Hinson, Mary Larkin, Dennis Gilmore, Roy Holder, and Rocky Taylor, who are all members and who are all very young in this movie. It's a very young cast, all in, I think, their late teens and early 20s. That's kind of what they all looked like in this. And so they all look back at this film and remember it and how crazy it was. Some of them are like, this was a kind of a bad movie. The other ones were like, this is one of the funnest movies I was in. So it's really cool to see the different things there. There's also The Sound of Psychomania, which is an interview with soundtrack composer John Cameron. The soundtrack on this is terrific. I really, really loved the score for this. And this, it's in the early 70s is when this came out. And obviously some of the best music. This is one of the best decades for music. So, but it's terrific. It's really peculiar and strange, but at the same time fits this crazy story really, really well. So I love that. And then there's also Writing Free, interview with Writing Free singer Harvey Andrews, who does a song for this particular movie. And then there's also the theatrical trailer for it. But disc one, terrific. To Fire You Come at Last, a strong 4 out of 5. I loved that movie. I really, really do. And I would say Psychomania would be a strong 3.5 out of 5. It's really, really fun and really, really chaotic and in the best way possible. So disc 1, already off to a really terrific start and one that I'm excited to keep going on. So let's move on to disc 2. So let's move to disc 2, which is The Enchanted and Who Fears the Devil, or The Legend of Hillbilly John, which I prefer that title a little bit. But let's talk about The Enchanted first, which is a movie that I didn't necessarily like as much as I probably should. But this movie came out in 1984, is set in Florida, I think northern Florida, but definitely very much in the kind of woodlands and bayou, maybe a little bit more of the swampland that exists in this area, but also looks a little bit at the way of the land and animals involved with it. Like there's various birds and mammals that are in this movie, but also there's some race relationships as well going on in this movie, and seeing that unfold within the superstitions of this people, which is really strange. But there's also some sculptures in this movie. I got to rewatch this movie. It's not something that I really particularly loved, but it definitely reminded me of a movie like Eve's Bayou, which I definitely love a lot more, which is one that I definitely would recommend. But you know, The Enchanted was an interesting one. Besides that, there's some audio commentary from director Carter Lord and camera assistant Richard Grange, moderated by filmmaker Kayla Janice, which was really fun. Kind of jumping into this, and that actually made me appreciate this a little bit more, was listening to all of them kind of talk about this film and definitely the trials and tribulations that they went through as they are making this movie with the low budget and the various ideas that are involved with it. There's also some audio commentary with Chessa Burke, author of Let's Play White, and Sherry Renee Thomas, author of 9 Bar Blues, which I didn't necessarily love their commentary. I didn't feel like they were adding too much per se to the film, and I feel like they were watching the film for the first time, so that was a little strange. But I did enjoy a lot of the history of race in particular in this region from them, and I definitely recommend people at least check out that for themselves. And I think it is an interesting piece to add here, and definitely very relevant to this particular disc. There's also A Magical Place, which is an interview with composer Phil Sawyer, which is another fun one. I really enjoyed the soundtrack of this as well, but not as much as the next film we're going to talk about. And then there's Hole in the Wall, which is character notes by screenwriter Sharnae Porter, and a trailer. And there's also a short film on here called Swimmer, which is actually a really making of the statue that is involved in this folk story, which was a really strange one, and it's kind of more like a documentary, not necessarily anything to watch, but it's cool to kind of see the background process of making that statue. But The Enchanted, I would probably give 3, maybe a 2.5 out of 5. It's something I need to rewatch, right? It's not something that really particularly stuck with me. I really love the commentary on it, though, and it definitely gave me a lot more background on this. There's also Julius Harris, who is a blaxploitation legend, who is in this movie, and he's actually one of the main characters as Booker T, and he's probably the best character in this movie. That's definitely the best part of the movie. Now, the other film that I want to talk about is Who Fears the Devil, or The Legend of Hillbilly John, which there's Hillbilly John right there. I loved this movie. This movie is wild in the various ways. It's an Appalachian / kind of Midwest, very much like where I'm from. I live in Missouri, very close to this kind of region of the world, and some very backcountry Ozarks type of folk horror going on, but some tales of Old Nick, who is also the devil. There's so many various different things going on with that story. Think of something like Who the Devil Went Down to Georgia by Charlie Daniels, very much like that, in a way where we have an instrument right here, this guitar, who is played by Hillbilly John himself, and he is actually fighting off kind of just different deities in different ways with some silver strings, because silver strings and silver in general is a really nice weapon against the supernatural forces that are around this area. And this movie is set kind of like vignettes, or just different like stories within a story. It's definitely not very, I would say, linear in terms of this one direction of things. It definitely has various stories within it, but various battles that John's going through just trying to make it home, but also challenge the devil. And it's really, really fun. And a lot of these stories are based on Wellman's work, which Wellman is actually the person who wrote a lot of these folk stories down that were a lot of spoken tales that people gave to each other and of Old Nick and these various battles. In fact, this movie is very much like that. There's a lot of vignettes of different stories going on in it, and it's quite an enjoying treat here. But let's talk about kind of the introductions here. There's also an alternate opening introduced by actor Severin Darwin, and this is actually where The Legend of Hillbilly John, which is actually my preferred title to Who Fears the Devil. I like that one a little bit more. I think it's more fitting to the story because John is just singing. I didn't mention this at all either. He's a folk singer, so it's very much, it's got this almost musical element to it, which is really, really fun, but really strange at the same time. Think of like Jeremiah Johnson, but he's fighting the devil and he's playing a guitar the whole time. It's very fun. Audio commentary with television historian Amanda Reyes, which is really good too. I really enjoyed this commentary, and Amanda Reyes kind of goes into a lot of elaborate detail and to the different things, especially with Wellman, which I had mentioned, who had written a lot of these things down that were passed down in various ways to the various Ozarkian and Appalachian folk members. There's also Silver Strings interview with actor and musician Hedges Capers, who is this man right here. Fun fact about him, he is a guy who was actually in a folk duo with his wife, who was black, and them together kind of putting this message out, and he actually kind of saw himself, because they were more singers than they were actors, and his wife is pregnant at the time when he did this film. And what was interesting about it is he really saw this as kind of an open eye to race relationships, but also to get to the country folk who aren't really, as I would say, educated in these worlds. And so it was really cool to kind of see him think about that process and kind of go back and talk about that and what that was like, seeing himself not necessarily as an actor but more of a singer, and putting himself through this project to kind of push forth this tolerance and this understanding, which is really, really cool. The other thing is Manly of the Mountains. Author David Drake remembers the Manly Wade Wellman. Wade Wellman is the one who wrote all those stories. I keep saying Wellman, so it was cool to kind of hear about that. And then there's also Occult Appalachia, which is occult historian Mitch Horowitz on the arcane text of Wellman's John the Balladeer stories, which is what this whole entire thing is based off of. And there's a theatrical trailer. But this was definitely the biggest treat on disc 2. I really, really loved it. In fact, I was so estranged by it the first time, and then watching the commentary, it's like, I really like this movie. I really, really like this movie. But going back to this, The Enchanted, I had said my score on that, but Who Fears the Devil, I would honestly give this movie a 4 out of 5. It is just right up my alley. It's weird and bizarre. I don't know if anyone is going to think the same way, but it is just a fun film, and one that hits a lot of the heart of where I'm from. So moving to disc 3, let's talk about The White Reindeer, which is a familiar face, and Edge of the Knife, the last two films that I watched before we end this. The White Reindeer is one that I have seen before, and one that I really enjoy. It's a Finnish folk horror tale from the 50s, and is shot beautifully. This is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen, and I really, really loved seeing it again and watching this in this new Severin edition of the film. And this actually comes with a couple of things that are new for it, particularly with some short films, which we'll talk about here in a second. But The White Reindeer is about this tribe that is out here, and I cannot, off the top of my head, remember the tribe's name, which forgive me for that, I don't have it in front of me, and is looking at this nomadic tribe and their story of the white reindeer, which is this rare reindeer that is kind of a good and bad luck charm. It kind of feels like that, but is really interesting because this reindeer is also this woman who is actually the main character in this story, but she is hunted down as she doesn't realize by her husband and various folk in the village, because they see this reindeer as this vampiric force almost. And it's really gorgeously shot, really strange for the 50s to come out and do something like this, but a terrific film nonetheless, and one that I highly recommend people check out, even if they don't have this box set. It's one of the ones that I loved going into it, and I still love it to this day. But there's other things with it. There's a projection booth episode of The White Reindeer hosted by Mike White, featuring Kat Ellinger, author of Daughters of Darkness, and Talk Without Rhymes, El Goro, which was a lot of fun. It was just kind of hearing, different people's perspectives on this film, and various different kind of elements. And they actually argued a little bit in it as well, but in a good way, and like a very educational way. And I quite enjoyed that particular commentary on it, because it almost was more so like a podcast than a commentary, because I think the last like 10 minutes of the film, it was just the film itself, which the film is only like a little over an hour, which is perfect, and I love that timing. There's also some other short films on here. A Witch Drum, which is an old, I guess, cartoon of sorts that was just beautifully shot. I really love this really short story, again, of the shape-shifting character, this witch almost, attacking this guy, this villager, and in a very kind of scary way, but in like this really cool animation. And I definitely recommend people check out A Witch Drum. It's really cool. And then there's The Night Side of the Sky, and then With the Reindeer, another special short film in here that I really enjoyed as well. Kind of more of a documentary of what the reindeer in this area and the herders that are involved in this particular spot, and how they live alongside and cohabitate with the surroundings. And so this is a beautiful film, a film that is definitely a 4 out of 5, one that I highly recommend people check out. The other film on here is Edge of the Knife, which is kind of BC, British Columbia area of the world, of another native tribe that the name's escaping me, but this is quite the terrific film. It's one of the newer films in this set. I think it came out maybe either 2017 or 2018, and was one that kind of blew me away. I didn't really know what to expect, but it is beautifully shot. Of course, it's in BC, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Can say I've been there and I love it there. It's one of the best. But this is an island people, where there's this story of these two tribes, one who lives more further north, who is migrating south during this time to escape some of the terrible weather that's up there, but they're really good friends with them. A horrific incident happens, and one of the chief leaders accidentally inhabits this entity, which is this demonic force that lives out in the woods, the Wild Man. And that's exactly what this story kind of delves into. And it is quite the treat. It's a little long, and I would say it probably could be cut back some. Visually, it's quite the treat, and I really enjoy some of the visual aspects of what the Wild Man looks like. And I love the spikes that he actually has in his feet. Sorry, not his feet, his mouth. You'll see what I'm talking about when you watch it. But it's really cool, and quite enjoyed. But definitely, like I said, it's a little overly wrought in time. There's also audio commentary with directors Gawai Edenshaw and Helen Haig Brown, who are the filmmakers of this and two of the tribe members of this. And I didn't mention the tribe themselves. I think there's only less than 20 people who are within this tribe, or at least who can speak the language of this tribe, which is shot in this language, which is super fantastic. And a lot of the actors were actually trained within the story, who maybe don't know the language themselves, but for the movie they learned the language. And it's really cool, because like I said, there's less than 20 people who know how to speak this language, which is insane, which is really cool. It's the Haida language, which is the retake, which is making of the world's first Haida language feature film, which is a really cool making of documentary, and kind of shows you that, and how cold that area was, weirdly enough. It's really fun to see that. There's also Haida Carva, which is a short documentary on the different various kind of artwork that the Haida people have put together. And then there's also Nalajuk Night, which I think I accidentally missed Night Side of the Sky with, so apologies for that if you're this far in the video. But Nalajuk Night is that Halloween night with the spirits, and the kids get candy. But it's really cool to kind of see this particular tribe that is almost feels like it's forgotten, but at the same time not so much, because the first language film is produced from these people, and it's amazing to see it in this box set, and more eyes are on it. I'd give this movie a 3.5 out of 5. Again, the length of it kind of got me a little bit. There definitely lulls in some places, but definitely worth checking out. So next time, I'm going to be talking about Born of Fire, which is what's currently in the player, which so far is quite a terrific film. But right now, that's all I have for you for All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2. I hope you enjoyed this week's film journey. I talked about quite a bit, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know again in the comment section down below what you've been checking out, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.